Hi friends, welcome back. So we've got to talk about the TV show that everyone's watching, and that's USA. It is a reality TV drama, but not a good one. It's a bad one. And essentially it is filled with corruption and cronyism. We're getting more picks coming from Trump, and this week on the reality TV show, it's Matt Gaetz as the Attorney General and Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence. Matt Gaetz is a really weird one. I check all the rumor mills all the time of like, who's under consideration, etc. I didn't see Matt Gaetz' name anywhere. And if you know anything about this Matt Gaetz dude, so he's kind of one of this, there's a group of Tea Party kind of representatives in the USA. Basically, they're basically Trumpers, basically it is, the election deniers, these kind of people. And essentially this guy was involved with this weird sex trafficking scandal. I wish I was making up, but I'm not. I wish I was. And I remember his friend was guilty, but for some reason he wasn't, and it involved like a 17-year-old and Venmo payments, and I don't know. And I laugh because it's like, and I remember when the guy would defend himself, and it just seemed like such a guilty dude. So I don't know how these people get away with these kind of things, and there's that. So usually these kind of scandals sink your political career. But I guess in the USA, hey, more power to you. You might be Attorney General. So there's that, dude. And are these people qualified? No. It's just about loyalty to Trump. And basically, Trump runs his cabinet this time around. Because to be fair to Trump, he learned, from the first time around, he's like, when people find out who I am and who I really am, they abandon me. But this time, I'm picking a team who's loyal to me and does whatever I tell them to do, no matter how ridiculous, no matter how illegal. Just kiss the ring and be my loyal servant. And there's some people out there that essentially lust for power, and it's again it is a bad reality TV show. And the funny thing is, I always bring these kind of stuff up. Guys, go see Game of Thrones, right? Look at King Joffrey. If you watch that show, this is what we're watching here live. Or we just saw the movie Gladiator. Go see it. You'll see it with the emperors, how they portray that. Or in the recent one, just more related to Trump, go see the movie The Apprentice. It just came out. It's absolutely, it captured the world that we're in, this mafia-driven kind of loyalty, kiss the ring, backstabbing world. And this is what it is. Like when you're picking people like Matt Gaetz, that's what you're going to get. Tulsi is an interesting one too for Director of National Intelligence. And then this is when you look her up, kind of what she's been saying lately. It's basically a lot of pro-Russian kind of stuff. You blame Biden for everything, and Russia's a hero, and great. That's great. That's what we got. I'll be actually shocked at this point if we stay in NATO. We'll see. And if I'm in Europe right now, right, and I'm talking to European friends there, start figuring out ways to live without the USA. Same with us, say here in Asia. We need to start making better friends with Japan, better friends with Philippines, better friends with Taiwan, this sort of thing. If USA wants to go and isolate themselves and cut themselves off from trade and relations with other countries, that's what they may do. And this is something that happened as well. When last time Trump went to Europe, my wife always references this stuff because we always watch this stuff together. I was like, can you believe this is real? All the European leaders are like making fun of Trump at a cocktail party. You can find the videos of that. It's so ludicrous. But I understand if you like Trump, you just ignore all this stuff and you think, oh, those Europeans they're just so stupid, whatever. But this is where we're at. Is we're picking people who are loyal, and that's our only qualifications that we want. Now, what's ironic from the Trump people's point of view, they blame all problems on woke culture and DEI, which is diversity, equity, inclusion. From that point of view, from those kind of people's point of view, if you pick someone that is not a white dude, then they must be unqualified. You're only picking them because of the way they look, etc., right? Which is kind of ironic, which some people have a different point of view. We're like, oh, if you look a certain way, like let's say white dude, I'm totally picking you or whatever. Or in this world, if you pick people who are ultimately loyal to you, that's what you want. It is a strange thing to where every time I look up the backgrounds of all these, because I'm fair, I learn about everyone, and I'm like, is this real? Is this a real pick? And yes it is. These are real picks by Donald Trump. The Fox News host one is a weird one. I talked about in the prior video, but it's hard to let it really sink in. And that's what we're doing. So again, if it's someone on TV, someone who defends Trump, someone I guess is willing to fight on TV for Trump on TV. That's who he picks. And you have to understand, going back to the reality TV show thing, is that Trump really hit the heart of Americans when he was on that show, The Apprentice, right? People really like that show. And so this is sort of why Trump always brings up ratings. This is why he brings up, crowd sizes, these kind of things. He's in his mind, making the greatest television show on earth, right? And you can't argue against it, or we're all watching it, we're all talking about it. But the problem is that the consequences that happen when you pick people who are wildly incompetent and wildly not qualified, I mean, this is like, given our nuclear codes to this kind of people, that's not a good world, and not a world that I want to be in. But unfortunately, that's the world that we're stuck in. That's sort of one of the dangers of democracy, is it sort of lends itself. And I'm not against democracy. Voting is, well, the joke you always say is, democracy is awful until you look at all the other choices. You're like, okay, that's what we got, right? So we'll stick with it. But you do need mechanisms in place to where you can replace leaders, and if you don't like it, in 4 years you get someone else, and hopefully that's well, actually we will, because Trump is 2-term limit. We'll see if he tries to pull any shenanigans to stay past that. But this should be hopefully the last time that we have this kind of situation where, and to be fair, guys, I grew up in the USA. I remember for years people were saying, what if we had a business person come in and be president? What would happen? Could we clean up all the corruption, and could we kind of streamline everything to be absolutely fantastic? Now you got Musk, now you got Trump, and we're going to find out. Can you run America like a business where if someone's underperforming, you just fire them on the spot? Can you have your employees compete for that final rose every single week, right? Can you just only look at the profit, line, and if like certain cities, certain states that don't make profits for you, you just cut them out and fire them? Can you run a country like that? I guess we're gonna find out. One of the things that really bothers me about this stuff, and I have to mention what those people on the right say, because you have to understand like how they basically misrepresent and mislead people. So the Fox News host, now defense secretary nomination guy, he blames all the problems in the military on the woke culture and DI. So from his point of view, because like all these people in the world, like this, everyone in the world wants to change their sex, right? Then therefore the military is weak, and therefore we're all like incompetent, or whatever he wants to say, right? And therefore we're all woke. Like some people actually believe that's our greatest challenge in the world. I just laugh because it's like, okay, are we even in reality anymore, right? But some people eat that stuff up. They have in this worldview that Christianity is the best, and if we're all Christian, we're gonna have a strong nation, and if we're not Christian, we're not. And that they sort of tie those things together. And then what's ironic is that when they look at other countries and they say, oh, look at those other countries that practice different religions, they're just too religious. It's weird that we're even having these conversations, right? And because I always have to try to explain like how the lunacy of the USA to people who are outside the USA. Yet you have Trump as clearly has never read the Bible. They even ask him, they're like, what's your favorite verse in the Bible? And he's like, oh, all of them. Well, what's your favorite book in the Bible? Well, all of them. They're awesome. Can you at least tell me, is there an old or a new part that you like? No, I like it all. And it's like, stuff like that. And it's just like so ludicrous. And it's essentially when you watch this stuff, any sane person, you know what's going on. You can see it. But the sad part is when you have like this large group that like fall for these things. I think the Matt Gaetz and the Tulsi thing sort of is completing what we're seeing, right? Again, if you go on TV and you help, Trump make his TV show, you're gonna make the cast of the cabinet. I guess it's called casting the cabinet. That's what we'll call this. And it's kind of similar with Musk, right? If you're loyal to him on X and you get more subscribers to him on X, then you're gonna do fantastic. All his stock promoters that he pays over there on Twitter, and some of these guys get paid, and females, so it's boys and girls he pays over there. They get like 6 figures to pump up Twitter, but like they literally spend all the time, oh yes, Twitter is saving democracy and stuff like that. And it was funny because I showed my wife the headline the other day, and you guys saw it too, was where it said JD Vance was like, if the EU tries to put regulations on Twitter, then we're going to withdraw from NATO. I was like, oh, is Twitter so vital to our national security? And is Twitter so vital to the country that if Europe wants to regulate Twitter, that we're just going to remove our allegiance to our allies at NATO? It's like think how ludicrous that this world is. But I mean, I got to take a deep breath and like how crazy this stuff is. It's funny because I've heard from people about this in Europe. We just had a chat. I told you before, a couple weeks ago. My wife's friend, she's Korean, and my wife's friend's Korean. and she married a French person from the south part of France. So, and they, married and actually live in Germany now, and then their kids speak German, which is kind of interesting. But we were chatting about, the Russia stuff and stuff like that, and he kept saying that it was interesting because we talked about it, about the Russia propaganda and stuff like that, and in Europe, that's actually a very real fear, like pro-Russia, proponents, be it online, be it in person, this kind of things, and Russia meddling. But this has been something that, for people who experienced, Eastern Europe, Eastern Bloc, and you kind of know the influence that Russia has. You know this stuff is real. And, we kind of like, we talk about it, both half serious, half joke in USA, because it seems so crazy. Example, I mean, I lived in the Cold War, and that'd be the last thing that I could ever imagine is like, Ronald Reagan start saying, pro-Russian stuff. Or just imagine this, guys, and this happened, you have Russian money going into social media influencers paying YouTubers to put out Russian messages. Just let that sink in. And these people on YouTube taking Russian money, people still watch this stuff. It's like, what? Like what? And it's so bizarre. And I've mentioned before on the channel, you guys don't know, Russian Today, they actually contacted me to come on their thing, and I declined. I said, no, I'm not doing it. There's certain things like you don't do. Don't get involved in spreading Russian propaganda. But we have this like contingent of the right-wing media who is in that right now. It's crazy times. And then when you try to like tell their followers about it, they just think, oh, it's just all lies and conspiracies and stuff like that. And then suddenly when you get like people, like, use a Tulsi example, and she like comes on TV and it's like, oh, it's the Ukraine war is all Joe Biden's fault, and it's Russia's good and stuff like that. It's like what? I don't know how to even talk about this stuff anymore. And how does it relate to our markets? If we're going to have this culture of cronyism and corruption, it'll definitely bleed over into our market. So for example, if you have someone on Wall Street, and we use the example of Dan Ives, who comes on TV and tells you that, Tesla is going to build a bunch of robots and it's going to add $1 trillion to the market cap. People asking in the comments is like, would someone on Wall Street lie? And here's a simple answer. Yes. Yes, they would. Yes, they do, right? If it involves a lot of money for some people, they will over, embellish, if you want to say, outright tell you lies. You can look at what's happening with, there's a stock in the market. It's SMCI, was it Super Micro, I think is what they're called. They're basically a mafia family over there, and they're lying on their books. Their accounting company leaves them, Ernst and Young, and and now the stock is like sinking like crazy. But that's what happens when you are basing everything based on cronyism, corruption. I'll give you another example. So I used to live in China. I always mention that one because you don't know, it's a communist country, but it's not what you think it is. Americans have sort of this idea of what it is, but it's not what you think it is. The real danger for these kind of places, if you want to talk about Russia, you can talk about Russia as well, it is that when corporations get too much power and can just buy the government, like literally what we're seeing right now, like it's all in public. We can see what Musk did. The last estimate, I think it was like 200 million or something like that to the Trump people. And now he's like going to be part of, making policy decisions that would likely benefit his companies. The same way that Trump can make policy decisions that likely benefit his family. Guys, I point this stuff out to you. So, I want you to look it up and read it for yourself. I can tell you, but if you don't see with your own eyes, just go, it's all making stuff up. But just look at Ivanka Trump's husband, Jared Kushner. He got a ton of money from the Saudis. It's like crazy money. I think it's like billions kind of money. I don't know if it's trillions kind of money, but it's like ludicrous. I can't remember the exact number. I just don't have the exact number in front of me. But this is the kind of stuff that we're talking about. We're not talking about chump change here. And the kind of proposal that these people are proposing, the kind of cuts that they're proposing to make, these kind of things, I think they're in for a real shocker. And this is what's going to be the interesting part, is how do the Republican Congress people respond when their constituents are like, yeah, so I really dislike dark people, but I don't necessarily want my Social Security or my Medicaid to disappear. I'll be curious like how that fight plays out. Or when they look to do cuts, and this will be an interesting one. I'm kind of thinking down the line when Musk is going to find a little bit of pushback when he tries to start cutting some of these things, like say he cuts back on the national highway safety because he wants his roads on his cars on the road. How people are going to respond to that. when say we're start getting more accidents or whatever, right? We'll see. The other thing too, I was thinking as well, and I mentioned before, and I just have to say it every time I talk about this stuff, the dollar is really strong right now. And if you had any kind of inkling to go travel, go see the world, now is a fantastic time. The dollar is strong. The other thing too is in my opinion, we're in a bubble, right? So what's going on with the market? If you look at valuations of companies, the PEs, right? It's a price of stock compared to how much a company earns. Like just like you're paying for a high price for the earnings that you're getting right now. And companies going forward, if all the projections, because this is probably going to happen. That's why I mentioned the Brexit stuff in the last video. If Trump is, his tariffs go through, and we're going to cut off the workforce, right? So we're going to have less workers, so the price of labor will go up, these kind of things. If the growth does slow, there's no way companies are going to make more money. How's that going to happen, right? But that's what we're going to see, right? That's always the bet. So it doesn't mean you exit the market entirely. You do what makes sense for you. If your horizon is long, right, you still keep doing what you're doing. You may change your allocations a bit because there's a high chance that 10-year treasuries may end up hit 5%, something like that. If you can get 5%, there's nothing wrong with taking that. It's safe. It's going to be there. You're going to make sure you're going to be good, right? And this is essentially what this is all about. It's all about how much risk are you willing to take. If you want to hang out and a bunch of cash, that's what Warren Buffett's doing. There's nothing wrong with that. Buffett's up to that. Like you're not losing. I think, in my opinion, that people always say cash is trash. I always think that's a little bit disingenuous. Mostly because, guys, you're not losing. Yes, there's inflation. Yes, I'm not stupid. I can see it. But you're not losing everything, right? And that's sort of why it's hard to talk about stuff when with young people, when you see that your cryptos are going to the moon, right? It's true. It totally is. But when also you can lose 60%, 70% in a day, that money can disappear very, very quickly. That's the risk that you have to understand. And sometimes when you first get started with stuff, you don't understand said risk. And to go back to the cronyism thing, if that becomes the culture of the USA, you're going to see more scams, right? You're going to see more corruption. You're going to see a lot more cheating of regular people because these people are so emboldened to get away with it. Now, I just hope that putting incompetence that essentially Trump is doing is not going to lead to more dangerous consequences when essentially you're giving the keys to the kingdom, the kings of the football, if you want to call it that, nuclear weapons, that kind of thing, I'd make it more obvious. If you're giving keys to people that don't know what to do with them or who are, I don't know what word to say, compromised, a real problem. So Matt Gaetz, that's the guy, sex trafficking. You're like, Chris, it's not funny. I mean, I don't know how to respond. Am I supposed to cry every video and like, oh my God? But it's like, I knew he wasn't going to get good people on his team, but I did think it would be like this. And then when you put it all together, yes, it is a reality TV show. So he's looking for people who appear on Fox News. So get your auditions ready. The cabinet is hiring. I'll catch you on the next video.